Mock draft time. We'll start at the top. We'll start at the number one pick. The Chicago Bears select. Now, is there any chance whatsoever this is deep fakery of if we're talking about shithousery of the epic degree, the Bears have pulled a blinder. If is there a 0.1% chance that this is all smoke and mirrors, or is this the most obvious lock that you could
It's
imagine?
it's I would say it is less than the 1% chance. I from the fact they were having meetings with him before his pro day, when he had told teams he would not have meetings with anyone until after the pro day. It
Yeah.
was because he was having days of meetings and dinners with the Bears. The fact that Keenan Allen turned up in Bears gear to the USC pro day to see his
That was
future,
a
like
that was a giveaway. That was a tell.
that was a giveaway. There was a tweet today from Albert Breer where Matt Eberflus was giving interviews at the meetings in Florida, and the phrase that Albert Breer used after talking to Matt Eberflus about meetings with Caleb Williams says they'll continue install at the 30 visit. Now that's a lot of jargon, but the fact that they use the phrase install, like they're onboarding him in effect. It isn't just like, oh, we're trying to, find out more about him. It's like they've started the process, really. They've started the process of making him a Chicago Bear at this point. There's only so much they can do because you can't be like, oh, here's the playbook when someone is not a member of the team. And they are having meetings with other quarterbacks, right? But I think that is simply so that if it turns out that Caleb Williams is the bust of all busts, that he was so hyped, the consensus number one, and then is a disaster, you can't point to the Bears and say, you didn't even look at the other quarterbacks.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You
but
didn't
even
do
if we
anything.
know it's for sure. So on that then, so he's a lock to go one overall. He is their lock in a draft, as Will established, that has got some pretty decent quarterbacks in. Why is he so clearly their first choice? Is it the fit? Is it that he is demonstrably the best quarterback there's daylight, as much as you can ever tell at this situation? But okay, let me
Yeah.
reframe it. You've got, as we've talked about many times on the show in the past, you've got an Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning kind of situation, and then you've got other players that you understand why they went one overall, but they're maybe not as sure a thing as those two, right?
Yeah.
Is Caleb Williams in that category? Is he close to it, or is he just the best of a very good, potentially excellent bunch?
No, he is really close to it. And obviously he could still be a bust, right? I'm only talking about as a prospect and potential.
My
That's
goodness.
doable.
Hot take. You're getting a hot take gang right out of the gates. Okay. There'll be more that to come, I'm sure, particularly when we start getting into the dealing and dealing that we are inevitably going to see in round one in the top 10, but not at two, because the Commanders we know are not going to deal their pick. They're taking a quarterback. The question is which one. So if you've got Caleb Williams, daylight from the next, are we saying three, first of all? So are we saying it's Daniels, is Drake Maye, it's McCarthy, or is McCarthy, as you've suggested, often happens around these parts, getting
Yeah.
overly hyped because it's hipster to overly hype him? So is it a group of three, or is it Daniels, Maye, and then McCarthy?
I think the gap between Caleb Williams and the duo of Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels, I think that gap is bigger than the gap between JJ McCarthy and those two, if you see what I mean. It's almost like three tiers
Mm.
of those top quarterbacks, with Caleb in one, Jayden and Drake in the other, and JJ very close, but in that third tier, if you're going to kind of really drill down. But loads of coaches love JJ McCarthy. And here's what happens at this time of year, right? You've had months of GMs and scouts watching all these college games, really drilling down into everything. And then what happens after the Super Bowl? the coaches can now start watching and the coaches get involved. And you find draft boards changing. So JJ McCarthy is potentially the most coachable of all these guys, right?
What do you mean?
In that he is someone who, because of the way that Jim Harbaugh has talked about him, that he will do anything for that offense. He doesn't try to be a hero. Because of the way that Michigan played last season, they never had to rely on JJ McCarthy. And I think a lot of people felt, oh, well, he's not that good. That's why they're not getting him to do all these things. It was just they didn't need him to. He was very much in game manager mode. But if you see some of those highlights, you see things that coaches are like, oh, well, I can even improve that. And then the coaches would meet him at the combine and they fell in love with him because he is like a kind of classic, like, yes, sir, let's go and do this sort of thing. You know, he carries himself differently to the other guys. Some coaches will be so enamored with him and see so much potential because we've seen a lot less of JJ McCarthy than we have of the other big quarterbacks because they've been winning games on their own. With Caleb Williams, like he didn't have much help. That defense was atrocious. He's having to do it all himself. JJ McCarthy, at certain times, it felt like he was along for the ride. But we're going to see what he can do because we've not seen it yet.
Wrong situation is a given, as you said. Quarterbacks can't get out of it, or rather, only exceptional quarterbacks get out of it, right? It can be the death knell for a lot of indifferent, so quarterbacks that might have thrived in a different. And I think that's an important point, isn't it? When we're talking about situation, it's the importance of the evolution of those early years and the progress a quarterback makes. It can become self-perpetuating, right? So, for example, if you put Dak Prescott in Dallas, it's a decent, very good, arguably the best offensive line in the game at that time in a contending side.
Yeah.
A lot of weapons around him. Okay, so the time he has, the freedom he's given, relatively speaking, to acclimatize to life as an NFL quarterback, he goes on a roll. Dak Prescott falls into a different situation that's messier than that. It's not just because he struggles and then doesn't get another opportunity, but he also crucially misses those years of evolution that accelerate his progress, right? So it's like a double negative when you're in a bad spot.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is my worry for Jayden Daniels is that he's got kind of a slightly reckless running style. And he takes a lot of hits. Yeah. He gets walloped at times, right?
Is he fragile? Is it RG3 risk?
I don't think so much it's fragile, but if he's in the NFL and he's going to be doing those things, because there's no point drafting Jayden Daniels if you're like, please just stay in the pocket.
Yeah, right.
Please don't use those God-given abilities that you've got to run the ball. If you want him to do that and your team isn't that strong and he's got to take off running a lot, he's going to take some brutal hits. And this is the Justin Fields situation. Now, if the team that drafts him can prevent that from happening, I think it's going to be great. But I think he can also just take so much punishment. He ends up taking a lot of sacks as well. He perhaps holds on to the ball for too long. But when he gets it right, he's a game changer.
Okay,
Absolute game changer.
Drake Maye is the one we haven't talked about yet. We'll get to Penix and Bo Nix a bit later because they're not going to go. Well, you never know, right? Trey Lance, who the hell saw that coming? But probably they're not going to go.
No, not with the wealth of top level quarterback talents. Yeah.
So Drake Maye, out of all of them, his stock has fallen the most. Right? JJ McCarthy's been the fastest riser. Caleb Williams has been pretty much holding firm at number one. And Daniels has kind of bounced around, feels to be like the hipster pick out of them, seems to be, well, I suppose McCarthy could sit. McCarthy's the one that, to your point, you want to be outlandish. Hey, you could go 2 overall, but Maye feels like the one's trending in the wrong direction. So why is that? What's happened? Drake Maye needs to hire Mike McCarthy as his agent. Yeah,
basically, if somebody's draft stock goes up in a position, somebody's goes down.
Fair.
That's what happens.
Hot take.
You know, it can't just be that all of their stock goes up.
Yeah.
So Drake Maye is the one that has kind of been pushed aside a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got, I think, an exceptional arm, but he does make poor decisions sometimes, and his accuracy isn't always there, which there's always been comparisons with him and Jordan Love, and we saw some of those things from Jordan Love. Remember, bear in mind, Jordan Love's actually been on an NFL roster for quite a while before we put it together. He wasn't particularly good in the first half of last season, and then was really good in the second half of the season. But that is still a small sample size. Drake Maye, if it takes him that long, like it did with Jordan Love, it's unlikely he's going to be at a team where he's sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and a team that is well built. So I do worry a little bit because these other quarterbacks aren't going to a team like the Bears that had 7 wins last season with chaos around them.
So where are they going? Oh, actually, before you answer that, Ben, so Drake Maye, I like this. I always love it around draft time because I can ask you this question. I get a really good elevator pitch. Drake Maye's most like
Jordan Love.
You're going to go with Love. Okay.
I'm going to go with Jordan Love. I'm going to go with when you watch, if you just watch some plays of his at North Carolina, the things that go well, that's what you'll see. That's what you'll see. And he's a really young guy, Drake Maye. He's going to probably go into a bad situation. And that worries me. I'm also a little bit scarred by Mitch Trubisky, who was also a star quarterback at UNC, who perhaps didn't have the resume. Like Drake Maye doesn't have the same resume as like Caleb Williams, who has like 3 seasons of elite play.